When Star Wars came out in 1977, it almost instantly became a global phenomenon. Kenner Toys, who had signed a contract to make toys and games based on Star Wars only a short time before the release of the movie, was caught without much in the way of toys to fill toy shelves and feed the hunger that the public had for all things Star Wars. Early merchandise available were items with easy turnaround times. Puzzles, board games, and coloring books quickly filled the shelves, while action figures, vehicles, playsets, and role-playing games needed more time. To remedy this shortfall, Kenner sold an empty box that included a certificate consumers could send in to get 4 of the 3 3/4 scale mini action figures. By 1978, Kenner had action figures and vehicles on toy shelves and were experiencing great success. The original 12 minifigures and accompanying vehicles, playsets, and accessories were flying off shelves, and the public's demand for more Star Wars was great. It seems like the public would buy any Star Wars toys that hit shelves. It was in 1978 that Kenner began to release 12-inch action figures, called large-size action figures, to help differentiate them from the 3 3/4-inch figures, still referred to in Kenner merchandising materials at that time as minifigures. At the time Star Wars was released, the most common action figure scale was 12 inches, although Mego had had great success at the 8-inch scale. The only true successful 3 3/4 figure line at that time was Fisher-Price's Adventure People. In fact, the original prototypes for many of the first 12 Star Wars figures were kit-bashed using Adventure People. Kenner primarily leaned into 3 3/4 inches so that vehicles could be affordably priced, as Star Wars was viewed by Kenner as a vehicle-driven line. Even with the success of the minifigures, Kenner still planned for a 12-inch line to fill store shelves, confident that the public's hunger for Star Wars toys would translate to a successful 12-inch line. Kenner launched the 12-inch line with 4 figures: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, and Chewbacca. With these original 4 figures, it was quickly clear that Kenner perhaps did not have the most clear vision for their 12-inch figure line, as Princess Leia veered way more into doll territory than she did action figure. With rooted hair, her box showed a little girl playing with her, combing and brushing her hair. Included in her box, in addition to the standard late 1978 toy catalog pack-in, was a booklet detailing all of the fabulous hairstyles children could recreate with Princess Leia. Definitely not what was considered a boy's action figure at any scale in 1978. Despite this miscalculation that put a Princess Leia figure that was really a doll on the boys' toy aisle, rather than her ending up in an aisle where little girls might find her more easily, the 12-inch line overall was a solid line from a design point of view. The figures have expert sculpting and very expensive-looking soft goods. The Darth Vader remains one of the best sculpted Darth Vader figures to this day that isn't from an adult collector's line. And the Princess Leia head sculpt remains to this day, in my opinion, one of the best sculpts of Carrie Fisher on any action figure of any scale, outside of higher-end collector brands, such as Hot Toys. Toward the end of 1978, C-3PO and R2-D2 would be released as Sears exclusives, before getting a wider retail release alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi, a Jawa, the Imperial Stormtrooper, Han Solo, and later, toward the end of 1979, Boba Fett. The softer sales and less enthusiastic greeting by consumers meant that the planned line extension of The Empire Strikes Back in 1980 did not come to fruition for the 12-inch line. While the bounty hunter droid IG-88 did see release, and Boba Fett was released with Empire Strikes Back branding, the rest of the planned Empire Strikes Back variants for Luke, Leia, and Han never saw the light of day. Nor did the Lando Calrissian figure. It's only due to Steve Sansweet's and his research and works in the 1990s that many fans ever found out about these planned releases. In exploring the unreleased concepts and planned items for this line, it does seem at one point Kenner had a more fashion doll-centric plan for Leia and Luke, with fashions and outfits conceptualized as extensions to the line. Leia seems to have gotten quite a bit of attention at one point with some very late 70s outfits planned, all of which look like they would be more at home on blister cards for another one of Kenner's attempts at chipping away at Barbie's hold on the pink aisle, Darcy. The Empire Strikes Back Bespin Leia doll herself seems like a missed opportunity. Not only did she come with a blaster instead of a comb and brush, but the cloak of her Bespin gown was particularly well made and designed. This would have been a striking figure on toy shelves and in our collections. While the male figure buck for Luke, Han, Ben, and presumably the unreleased Lando was a reuse from the Hardy Boys dolls Kenner had produced, the Leia buck was not a reuse of the fashion doll body that Darcy used, nor of parts of the buck for the Bionic Woman doll. Instead, Kenner went back to their oldest attempt at challenging the Barbie status quo, Dusty. Dusty, once advertised by Kenner as America's most beautiful doll, was a more action-oriented doll. She had a thicker, sturdier body and had accessory sets dedicated to more sporty pursuits than Barbie. Golfing, softball, and camping, all of these were in Dusty's wheelhouse. She also had a friend Skye, who was probably Kenner's first black doll. Dusty's line lasted only a few years and produced many variants, accessories, and fashions. While this was a noble attempt at presenting something other than Barbie, Dusty never quite took hold with the imaginations of little girls in America. Her solid run on toy aisle shelves is mostly forgotten all of these decades later, with her being little more than a footnote in Kenner's illustrious, if not uneven, history of girls' toys. Dusty had a few different bucks, and Leia would use the original buck. However, Leia would not be the last to use this original buck. At the same time large-size Leia was hitting shelves, Kenner would make another go at the girls' aisle using the first Dusty buck. The honor of being the last doll to use the Dusty buck would go to Kenner's movie tie-in to 1978's International Velvet. International Velvet was a sequel to the film classic National Velvet, which had starred Elizabeth Taylor and Mickey Rooney and come out in the 1940s. Neither of these iconic actors returned for the sequel. However, International Velvet did star then-famous Tatum O'Neal, who was at the zenith of her career, having just come off The Bad News Bears and still being a few years removed from winning an Oscar for Paper Moon. While International Velvet did not have the cultural impact of National Velvet or even Star Wars, it did manage to gross a little over $7 million during its theatrical run, which isn't too shabby in 1978 money. It wasn't the kind of money that would have had it considered a box office success. Keep in mind that in 1978, Star Wars grossed $30 million in its second year of release. In a year that included Grease, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Saturday Night Fever, National Lampoon's Animal House, Every Which Way But Loose, and Jaws 2, which is the best Jaws movie, in my opinion. A cozy drama about a girl and her horse didn't have much appeal. This lackluster box office performance wouldn't have helped move toys off of the shelves, nor could the fact that the movie wasn't particularly toyetic. Kenner's merchandise was limited to the Sarah Velvet Brown doll, her horse Arizona Pie, and the tried-and-true quick-to-market Kenner board game. The Sarah Velvet Brown doll isn't even a particularly good likeness of Tatum O'Neal. Another notable thing about this doll is that it also reuses the same boots found on the large-size Han Solo. This doll can be easily found on eBay in various degrees of mint to definitely not mint, and the game is often available for a reasonable price, often in mint and sealed box condition. My research over the last few years shows that the Arizona Pie horse is rarer, and when he does show up, he often goes for fairly reasonable prices. Even though the horse is rare, there doesn't seem to be a ton of demand for him, nor the other toys from this movie tie-in line. International Velvet is mostly only interesting from a toy point of view due to its Kenner and Star Wars connections. One does wonder how Kenner would have done if they'd released Leia as a proper doll in 1978. What possibilities could there have been released along other popular fashion dolls of the year? They could have even gone the route of releasing it as a Carrie Fisher fashion doll, as many notable actresses and pop culture personalities of the time were released as their very own fashion dolls. I, for one, would have enjoyed having a Disco Ghost Leia, or Silver Jumpsuit Leia, or Carrie Fisher in any one of these funky 1970s fashions, with chunky shoes that were ready for the disco floor. It's also possible that the large-size figure line would have sold better with some of the accessory outfits actually released for Luke and Leia. Part of the minifigure line's success was ships and accessories. A play environment, a 12-inch scale land speeder, and some outfits might have made all the difference. Kenner had even had success with both the Bionic Woman and $6 Million Man in the 12-inch scale using this model. At the end of the day, the Kenner large-size figure line and the large-size Leia remain in high demand among collectors of the vintage Kenner toy line, and are still among the best non-collector toys released by Kenner or Hasbro under the Star Wars brand. I myself can't help but hope that one day Kenner will release a retro collection style line of these large-size figures, revisiting the unreleased Empire Strikes Back line. It would be really cool to get a large-size Bespin Leia after all this time. Well, that's it for today. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like, and you should subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications when a new video goes live. For now, I'm Allison Troy, Retro Toy Princess, and I'll see you in the next one.